just how strong is Yuji now? Let's talk about that and a few other questions from you guys to help assuage this JJK break week. Oh, and spoiler warning if you're not caught up through chapter 262. So this first question comes to us from Ghosty, who says that he and his brother realize that Yuji isn't even top 17 within his own verse, counting all explored characters. And they think that because he loses to pretty much anyone with a deadly domain, since he himself doesn't have a domain. And I disagree with this. I think there's an argument to be made. So, I'm not saying you're wrong or anything. This is very subjective at this point. And mainly it's subjective because it's so impossible to scale anybody based on Sukuna because he's had such fluctuating power levels, right? All that we truly know are some like hard capped tiers, primarily being Gojo and Sukuna are in a completely different realm. And then, like you mentioned, people with domains are typically going to outclass people without them. But I would say there are some caveats to that because, like you mentioned, Yuji does have simple domain, and we saw him even withstand Sukuna's domain. So, yes, that's not going to be a permanent solution for withstanding a domain, but I don't think Yuji automatically loses to domains. I think he does have enough toolkits to perhaps get the win in certain situations. And yeah, subjective, contextual, sure, but let me just throw a couple things here. Like Gojo Sukuna, of course he loses to. Yuta, current Yuta, I think he loses to. He's just got too much going against him between Rika and the domain, but Kinjaku, I also think Yuji loses to. But everyone else in this third tier, except maybe Yuki, I think Yuji has a pretty good shot against just because Yuji's like a brick house, man. Like he is durable as hell. He has an easier path to RCT thanks to his blood manipulation factor, and he is going to truck people. You got to remember that like Sukuna is taking, a baker's dozen black flashes out here, but no one else would be capable of that. Back during the Kyoto School sister event at the beginning of this manga, Gege said that those black flashes that Yuji had hit Hanami with, if those had hit Jogo, he would have died. And that was at the start of the manga, right? So now we're talking about Shinjuku Yuji. Like one black flash might be enough to take out the majority of kind of the non-Gojo Sukuna caliber players. Now the question is he going to get that opportunity? Can he get close enough? If he has to stay in his simple domain, will he be able to hit a black flash? And those are good points, but I just think Yuji is probably top 10 in my opinion, towards the latter half of that. But I mean, as soon as he gets a domain, which I think is coming, I think Yuji's top 5, and maybe even beyond. We'll have to see which direction the story goes, but I also think that Yuji beats Maki and Toji just straight up right now. And then when we get into the characters with domains, it's really going to be really gonna have to get into the weeds on like the circumstances of what's happening and what exactly their domain is. But yeah, I don't think it's an instant win con against Yuji just to have a domain. And this is getting really long-winded, so I'll just end by saying I think Yuji's top 10. I understand why you think top 17, but I do think people devalue just the strength of Yuji's attacks a lot. Next up, got this insane donation from Duke, who asked if I could review his channel but didn't provide any more information. So I couldn't figure out what you meant by this. So Duke, if you're seeing this, please reach out to me in DMs and we can connect. Next up, Isaiah wants to talk about Sukuna's cursed tool. So let me move out of the way for anybody that wants to pause, but he is referencing, I believe, Kamutoke, which is Sukuna's smaller cursed tool that shoots out the lightning. And he says he believes this to be Vajra from Tibetan Buddhism. And I'm not well researched on these things. I have like a very surface level knowledge of some of the connections. But yeah, like Gege is heavily inspired by various religions and of course Japanese history and mythology. So this all checks out to me. Now, Isaiah goes on to say that he wonders if Sukuna has kind of tied to that idea, if he has conquered the 5 negative emotions, and that's how he like understands cursed energy and why he is who he is, right? And that would certainly seem to make sense on a thematic level, but I'm curious if we'll actually get that kind of deep characterization from Sukuna, because he's such a mystery, right? We don't really know how he rose to the heights that he rose to. And yeah, we have some idea insofar as that, we know he was a twin and his twin passed away, and that gives you kind of a power boost in this universe. But will we find out like that Sukuna was kind of enlightened in that way, and that's why he's so strong. Like, I don't know. It would make sense to me, but I don't know if we'll ever get that type of insight into his character. Next up, Gojivon says that his theory on why Yuta doesn't have access to Gojo's memories is because he's interpreting the body and the soul and the technique differently from Kenjaku. And I could certainly see that being a possible reason why. I've talked a lot about the memory thing in previous videos, so I won't touch on that again, but I certainly think Akotsu is using the brain swap technique differently than Kenjaku. Because like you said, everyone has their own interpretation, but also Akotsu, first time using it, right? Kenjaku had 1,000+ years, so there's no doubt in my mind he knows all the nuance and can finesse the technique way better. And Akotsu doesn't have access to Kenjaku's memory, so he wouldn't know those things. Next up, Nero wants to know what would happen if Gojo had a Senzu Bean in his fight with Sukuna, and he would have won. Like, if we just assume Senzu Bean takes you back to 100% in all aspects, Gojo claps, because that would instantly heal his brain. He could open up his domain. We know Sukuna couldn't, so it would have been lights out for him. Next up, Zay says, Hikari or Uruume, who wins and whose curse technique is superior? Why is it taking so damn long? I have no idea who's going to win. I feel like Uruume isn't going to be taken out that easily, mostly because we've already kind of had like a great fight with Hikari and seen what his curse technique is capable of. And that's not to say he can't evolve, but with Uruume, we haven't really seen that much from them. So I would expect to kind of get more of a showing out from them. Does that mean that they'll win? I don't know. But me personally, I think Uruume's curse technique is way cooler, so I would take that one. And why is it taking so damn long? It's taking a long time in our world, just because we've been, so far absent from them for so many chapters. But in reality, it's probably only been like 20 to 30 minutes, I would guess. So, we'll check in with them soon. We'll have to see what Gege's got cooking. And speaking of that fight, Josue says Uruume defeats Hikari and then cooks him up for Sukuna to eat him. That allows him to recover, initiate the merger, and then the end of the manga takes place, right? I don't know if I could see exactly this happening. Uruume could certainly defeat Hikari, but I don't know if I see them like whipping out the pots and pans and cooking up a feast in the current circumstances. Now, if you're saying that like there is some lull, like the battle ends and everyone retreats to their corners for whatever reason, then maybe. But if it's all just one continuous thing, then I don't think there's the space for a cooked meal in that fashion. But I do hope we see, I say hope, maybe I should be careful what I wish for, but I hope to see Sukuna eat somebody before the end of this manga, the way that Gege has teased that by saying he's a cannibal and his favorite thing to do is eat and all that jazz. But we'll just have to see. Next up, General Tempest wants to know if Sukuna opens his domain in split-second intervals the same way that Gojo did in the Shibuya train station basement, the 0.2-second domain. And no, he doesn't. Now, he is fully capable of that, I would say, but that's not what he was doing in his fight with Maharaga. And y'all read the whole question if you need more context here. But he was just using his regular curse technique against Maharaga up until the point where he opened his domain fully, normally, at the end. So what you're referencing there when Maharaga was using cursed energy, that wasn't domain amplification or anything. That was just Maharaga adapting to Sukuna, because when he first attacked Sukuna, he used his Sword of Extermination, which is coded in positive cursed energy. But Sukuna is not a cursed spirit, right? And so that didn't just instantly destroy him. So Maharaga learned from that and then started attacking with regular cursed energy. And then for your second question on Yuji's hands, my leading theory until we learn otherwise is just that that's some facet of blood manipulation that he gained access to after eating all of his Curse Womb Death Painting brothers. Next up, Tyler wants to know if another Six Eyes can be born now that Yuta is Gojo. And if we assume that Yuta is currently wielding Gojo's Six Eyes, which is the assumption, then no new Six Eyes user can be born, because two Six Eyes users cannot exist at the same time. Even if it is Yuta puppeting Gojo's corpse, if those Six Eyes are still in function, then no one new will be able to be born with them. Next up, Jojo wants to know if Kashimo could have RCT. And this is in reference to the panel where his hand gets sliced by Sukuna, and then in later panels, it's seemingly okay. So could he have RCT? Yeah, I think it's possible, but I think it's also possible that that healing could have been some functionality of Mythical Beast Amber. So we don't know for sure, but it's possible. And finally, to round us out here, we have a couple of questions from A. The first one being, if Miwa 1v1'd each Hashira from Demon Slayer, how many W's is she taking home? And honestly, zero probably. I'm not the best at cross verse scaling, especially because I'm not all the way through Demon Slayer, but I just don't think Miwa has really any feats that are going to make me think she could take any of them, especially if we're considering current Miwa, because she can no longer wield a sword. Now, does that mean she's completely useless? No, but like that's going to be a big problem for her. So I don't think she beats any of them. But those of you that are more well versed in Demon Slayer, let me know if you think she takes any of them. And then for your second question on Two Hand Toto versus Vibra Slap Toto, who wins? And I think Vibra Slap Toto just stomps in every scenario, because if we take pre Shibuya Toto when he had both of his hands and we're throwing him against current Shinjuku Vibra Slap Toto, then even Vibra Slap aside, I think Toto has grown in a number of ways since then. So he's just stronger in general. But if we want to take like a Toto clone so that they have the exact same stats, but one has two hands, one has the Vibra Slap, I'm still going Vibra Slap just because of the 50 slaps per second are going to give Toto so much more room to do crazy creative things with that 53,000 IQ, right? So I think Vibra Slap just outclasses OG Toto at this point. All right, y'all, that's going to do it for this one. Special shout out to everybody who supported. Thank you guys so much. And don't worry, we are going to make it through this extended Lobotomy Kaisen together. So don't forget to join the Discord. Come hang out with us there. And finally, thank you guys so much for watching. I will see you soon.